the half-empty sanctuary than not start. What? Do we need to be further away? I don't know why that front row was not so completely gone last week. I don't know what got moved and why. I had this. What? Yes. Okay, then you need to put your calendars on your calendars because it's been on there since before it started. We're live? Okay. I don't like how this is, the Facebook feed is not at the right angle either. Oh well. Shabbat Shalom. We enter this sanctuary to welcome Shabbat. Within these walls, we sit surrounded by numberless generations. Our ancestors built the synagogue as a visible sign of God's presence in their midst. Through our long history and endless wanderings, it has endured, a beacon of truth, love, and justice for all humanity. Its presence guided our ancestors to lives of righteousness, holding up to them a vision of their truest selves. Now we, in our turn, come into this sanctuary to affirm the sacredness of our lives. May we enter this place in peace. May holiness wrap around us as we cross its thresholds. Weariness, doubt, the flaws within our human hearts, the harshness of the weak. Let these drop away at the door. In the brightness of Shabbat, let peace settle upon us as we lift our hearts in prayer. On page 120, our service formally begins with the lighting of our Shabbat candles. I'd like to invite up Debbie, who helped open up our building and set everything up tonight and set up the oneg with help from others who are posted at their stations. So it's all on you now. Amen.
Blessed are you, Adonai, God, sovereign of the universe, who houses mitzvot, manliness, the temple of life.
And now we welcome the Sabbath Bride with Lecha Dodi on pages 138 and 139. We sing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9, and when we reach verse 9, I invite you, if you are able, to rise and face the door and imagine the Sabbath as a beautiful bride coming down the aisle to join us in our sanctuary. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. 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 Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, Hishmi'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad, u'shemo echad, l'shemo tiferet v'litila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki hi mekor habracha, merosh mikadam nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshavat tchila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Hi torari, kiva orach kumi uri, shir daberi, kevod Adonai alayich nigla. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Boi v'shalom atet bala, gam besimcha uvetzola, toch emunei am segula, bo'ichala. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. You may be seated. And now we've opened up our hearts with that beginning nigun and our opening kavanah. We welcomed in the Sabbath Bride and lit the Shabbat candles, and we're ready now to segue fully into our evening service with the Chatzi Kaddish on page 144. Yitkada v'yitkada shemei rabba, ve'alma divrach yirtei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon, u'chayetecho bet Yisrael, bagala, uvizman kariv, ve'imeru amen. Yehesh merabba mevarach, ve'alamu al me'almaya, yitbarach, ve'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yit'halal, shemei dekudesha b'rechu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma, ve'imeru amen. On page 146 is the call to worship. Please prepare yourself for the Baruch Hu. Yai da 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 yai da 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 yai da 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 yai da 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 yai da 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 yai da 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 Barechu et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed. You may be seated. And we continue together in the English on page 148. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzevaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ari v'aravim. Page 150. Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Amcha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadeta, Al ken Adonai Eloheinu b'shachbenu, uvkumenu nasiach b'chukecha, v'nismach b'divrei toratecha, uv'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed. Ki hem chayenu, ve'orech yameinu, uvahem negei yomam v'layla, negei yomam v'layla, ve'ahavatcha al tasir, mimenu le'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev amo Yisrael, Ohev amo Yisrael. On pages 152 and 153, we have the Shema, followed by the Ve'ahavta. I invite you to prepare yourself for these words of Torah. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha B'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'otecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך, ובשכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים אלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Please be seated, and we read responsively on page 157. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then we shall rejoice as Israel, sitting on the shores of the sea. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nehedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef eleh, nora tehilot osef eleh. Malechutecha ra'u banecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, Ze'eli anu ve'ameru, Ze'eli anu ve'ameru, Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. Page 160. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomrenu l'chayim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us a wrong from right, O Adonai. Amen. Amen, amen. Amen, amen. Amen, amen. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. Page 162. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam berit olam. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam berit olam. Beni uvein bnei Yisrael, oti leolam, oti leolam. v'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat. La'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz v'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat. La'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam berit olam. Vayom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash v'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat. La'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam berit olam. There's a comment that says, good to hear the woos. So our friends watching on our live stream are still glad that some of us can be in the sanctuary here together. So we come now to the central portion of our evening prayer. The Amidah begins on page 164 and continues over the next few pages. I invite you to prepare yourself for this set of blessings. Adonai sefatai tiftahu fi yagid tehilatecha. Eternal God, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your glory. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, v'Konei Hakol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, U'Mevi Geula Livnei v'Neihem, Lema'an Shemo be'ahava, Melech Ozer u'Moshia u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechaye ha'kol atah Rav le'Hoshia, Mashiv haruach u'morid ha'gasham, Mechakel chaim bechesed, Mechaye ha'kol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim ve'rofech cholim, Omatir asurim, Umekayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Michamocha ba'al gevurot, Omido melach, Melech meimit umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah lahachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol, Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, U'kadoshim b'chol yom yehalelucha selah, Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el hakadosh. You may be seated. We continue together on page 172. You set aside the seventh day for your name, the pinnacle of creation, and you blessed it above all other days, more sacred than all festival times. So it is written in your Torah, the heaven and the earth were finished and all their array. On the seventh day, God had completed the work that had been done, ceasing then on the seventh day from all the work that God had done. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, and ceased from all the creative work that God had chosen to do. Our God and God of our ancestors, be pleased with our rest. Sanctify us with your mitzvot, and grant us a share in your Torah. Satisfy us with your goodness, and gladden us with your salvation. Purify our hearts to serve you in truth. In your gracious love, Adonai, our God, grant as our heritage your holy Shabbat, that Israel, who sanctifies your name, may rest on it. Praise to you, Adonai, who sanctifies Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha-Shabbat. Page 175. You are with us in our prayer, our love, and our doubt, in our longing to feel your presence and do your will. You are the still, clear voice within us. Therefore, O God, when doubt troubles us, when anxiety makes us tremble, when pain clouds the mind, we look inward for the answer to our prayers. There may we find you, and there find courage, insight, and endurance. Let our worship bring us closer to one another, that all Israel and all who seek you may find new strength for your service. Baruch atah Adonai, she'odcha levadcha b'yirah na'avod. Page 176. We acknowledge with thanks that you are Adonai, our God, and the God of our ancestors forever. You are the rock of our lives and the shield of our salvation in every generation. Let us thank you and praise you for our lives which are in your hand, for our souls which are in your care, for your miracles that we experience every day, and for your wondrous deeds and favors at every time of day, evening, morning, and noon. O good one whose mercies never end, O compassionate one whose kindness never fails, we forever put our hope in you. For all these things, O sovereign, let your name be forever praised and blessed. O God, our Redeemer and Helper, let all who live affirm you and praise your name in truth. Blessed are you, Adonai. Your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'el lehodot. Page 178. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Ki atahu melech adon l'chol hashalom. B'tov b'necha levarech et amcha Yisrael, b'chol eit uv'chol sha'a b'shlomecha. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam, tasim leolam. Baruch atah Adonai, hamivarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom. We take a moment now for silent prayer. You might use the words on pages 180 and 181 or the meditations of your own heart. Yehi l'ratzon imrei fi v'hegyon libi lefanecha. Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri, v'goali, v'goali. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable to you, Adonai, our rock and Redeemer. We turn our thoughts now to those who are ill or injured and in need of prayers for healing. We have on our community Misha Berach list Mary Kennedy, Rosalind Cantu, Mike Haug, Lori Perry, Nick Joliat, Rhoda Wessler, Rhonda Butler, Ricky Grant, Shoshana Bat Abraham, Minna and Ira Dornfeld, Juliette Arrighi, Leslie White, Elaine Skolnick, Marilyn Frito, Anna Parias, Frank Lerner, John Solomon, Ann Cohen, Charlotte Birch, Anita Ash, Joseph Matter, Daryl Swan, Doris Hudson Trujillo, Susan Smith, Mary Lou Manzelli, Kevin Kossoff, Devin Kennedy, Herb Leventhal, Kai Bean, Gail O'Neill, Rachel Hofford, Bruce Berg, and Patty Bergeron. If anyone else has a name they'd like to add, please do so.
Jonathan Siegel.
The Misha Berach is on page 371, and we hold in our hearts all those in need of healing in mind, body, and spirit. Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Limotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misha Berach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha La'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Shabbat Shalom. This week's Torah portion is Parashat Vayetze, in which Jacob runs off to his uncle Laban's house to escape his brother Esau, who in last week's Parsha he twice deceived and claimed what was rightfully Esau's. In this week's Parsha, Jacob meets and immediately falls in love with Laban's daughter, Rachel. However, in the light of the morning after the wedding, he discovers that the bride in his marital tent was in fact Rachel's sister Leah. Laban explains that it's simply not done to marry off the younger sister first, but Jacob can marry Rachel as well if he works for her too, having already worked 7 years to earn his first bride's hand in marriage. Through this series of events, the family turned out larger and better set up to be the people of Israel. However, modern Torah commentator Nechama Leibowitz teaches strongly that the ends do not justify the means for Jacob. While many of the classical commentators bend over backwards to make excuses for Jacob, Leibowitz teaches that all of Jacob's misfortunes, and potentially even the enslavement of his descendants in Egypt, are a direct result of his misdeeds and a punishment for his immoral behavior toward his brother. In the Midrash Tanchuma, this week's Torah portion is told with an additional rebuke from Leah. When Jacob confronts her for tricking him, she throws it back in his face that what she and her father conspired to do is no different than what he and his mother did. In Rabbi Benjamin S. Yasker's book, Torah Conversations with Nechama Leibowitz, he underscores Leah's response in the Midrash by pointing out an easily overlooked line in the Torah portion itself. In the text, Laban does not hold up the mirror to Jacob quite so clearly, but in his excuse that the older sister must marry first, he uses the specific phrasing of the firstborn, just as Isaac calls Esau when Jacob is pretending to be his brother. When Jacob first requests Rachel's hand in marriage at the beginning of the Torah portion, the Torah refers to the sisters in terms of bigger and smaller. So the shift to firstborn harkens back to Jacob's behavior in a subtle yet distinct way. Rabbi Yasker then brings this all back to Leibowitz's drash that Leah and Laban's trickery is a direct result of Jacob's own. Going forward then, Leibowitz and Rabbi Yasker, point out how the deception with the sisters results in the unequal treatment of Jacob to his wives and children. Jacob never really wanted to marry Leah, and so although he stayed committed to their marriage that he was bamboozled into, he didn't care for her or her children with quite the same affection he shows to Rachel and to her 2 precious sons who additionally were conceived and delivered with great difficulty, just to add that preciousness to them. And as we will see in coming Parshiot, this favoritism leads to Joseph being sold into slavery and sent to Egypt, which in turn precipitates the children of Israel being trapped and enslaved in Egypt for several generations. The 2 modern Torah commentators in their Torah conversations even take this concept of divine punishment for Jacob's swindling all the way to the Jews of Shushan, Persia. Quoting Midrash Rabbah, which highlights the similar use of Hebrew between Esau's loud and bitter cry when he discovers that his father has given away his blessing, and the loud and bitter cry of all the Jews in the book of Esther when they learn of Haman's genocidal plot. I don't generally buy into concepts of divine punishment. Letting out a loud and bitter cry seems like a pretty universal response to these difficult situations. So the parallel between Genesis and Esther seems a simple coincidence. And the cause of the Jews' enslavement in Egypt was Pharaoh's xenophobia, and to blame Jacob's causations feels a little victim-blamey. And yet, I think the Midrashim, Nechama Leibowitz, and Rabbi Benjamin Yasker all point to an important message. Our actions have consequences. Sometimes those consequences ripple far beyond our own repercussions and can affect generations to come. It is impossible to always prepare for the future, to know exactly how things are going to turn out, and to eliminate negative effects on our progeny, biological or spiritual, altogether. But it is possible to think before acting, to always act with integrity and in accordance with our own values, and to hopefully avoid truly catastrophic fallout that destroys futures. May we all stick to our values, learn from our mistakes, and live with our consequences. And in doing so, may we create a better future for our families and communities. Amen and Shabbat Shalom. We turn now toward our concluding blessings. The Aleinu is on page 586, and I'd like to invite up Sarah and Sim to open the ark for us, and invite the rest of you to prepare yourself for the ark to be open. Aleinu leshabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kagoye haratzot, velo samanu kamishpechot ha'adama, shelo sam chalkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim, Lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, V'nemar, V'haya Adonai, Lemelech al kol haaretz, Bayom hahu, Yeh Adonai echad, U'shemo echad. You may be seated. And now we turn our thoughts to those who are no longer with us in body, but remain with us in spirit. This week marks the yahrzeit for Percy Max, Lily Lefkowitz, Anna Reichner, Marion Waldman, and Shirley Berlin. And we are still within the year of mourning for Joe Davis, Kathleen Schindler, Jamie Belletz, Neil Savage, Ann O'Neill, Bruce Schechter, Bernard Stressner, Ruth Sherman, Louis Aaron Honig, Jean Sullivan, Carolyn Rubel Magrum, David Nemero, Tom Lombard, Marion Finkel, Steve McGrew, Herbert Levy, Lynn Steffen, Gary Sullivan, Debbie Taylor Wright, Mark Anderson, and Samuel Fallis. If anyone else has a name they'd like to add, please do so. The Mourner's Kaddish is on page 598. Mourners and those who wish to join them may rise. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah be'alma divrach hiroteh v'amlich malchuteh b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala u'bizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevarach ve'olam olalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudesha b'rechu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata ta'amiran ba'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shalom araba min shemaya v'chayim alenu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav Hu ya'aseh shalom alenu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Please be seated. Oseh shalom b'mromav Hu ya'aseh shalom alenu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'imru. A few announcements. Tomorrow morning there is religious school at 9:30. And tomorrow is Saturday. Tomorrow morning, there's nothing. Tomorrow night, there's Havdalah at 7:30 on Instagram and Facebook streaming only. Sunday morning, there is religious school at 9:30 in the morning. And Gan Teva is having an open house here at 2 p.m. So if you know anyone who has preschool-age children, help spread the word about that as well. Monday at noon on Zoom, we are doing Torah study to study for next week's Parashat Vayishlach. And then next Friday, when we are on Parashat Vayishlach. Services will start at 7 p.m. It is our next family Shabbat. The religious school students will be here to participate. And then the rest of the weekend is normal. Havdalah on Saturday night, religious school Sunday morning. So that's this coming week. Just a few heads up, I guess, for coming weeks. In 2 weeks, it is a home Shabbat, the Thanksgiving weekend. We will not be having services I will not be leading services in any form. I'll be with my family. Then the weekend after that is Hanukkah, so we are back in the sanctuary. Bring your menorahs. And December 1st is in between those two Shabbats, and that's our next book club meeting. So I think that's everything, yes? Okay, great. Our closing song tonight will be Shalom Aleichem on page 627. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Ni Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ba'achem leShalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Ni Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni leShalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Ni Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzidchem leShalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Ni Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Thanks for joining us in whichever form you did. And those of you physically here, let's go have some Kiddush. Woohoo! And Jeff, Mazel Tov. I saw some of Debbie's pictures. It looked like a wonderful weekend. It was. Good.